Hey everybody, I'm Justin, John David's dad. He's over there knocked out. But these are the 6 reasons why we started the YouTube channel and why we started making all these videos. And they are for my own mental health and processing, to streamline updates for our community, to document and have photos and videos of our kids and our family, to help spread CHD awareness, create a resource for other families, and if we're ever able to get monetized, awesome. But that's number 6. It's the last one. That's not anything to do with the first 5. The first 5 are the priority. Now, that first reason was for my own mental health and my processing. So for me, I didn't start this channel when John David got diagnosed. I didn't start it when we came in and he was born. I didn't start it when he was here during his time of pre-op on those 10 days before he went into surgery. I did start it after. I didn't even start it after his surgery. I started it after we went to a family funeral, and there were people there who didn't really know what was going on, who were asking questions, and it was just really, really, really hard to try and recount everything that was going on, because by that point, he'd been born, he'd had a brain hemorrhage, he had gone into surgery, he had cardiac arrest, he'd gone on ECMO, which is the most intensive life support you can have. The next step is death. Then he came off of ECMO, he had a stroke, then he wasn't doing all that great, and the conversations were that if he did not improve, we were down on limited options, and that he was going to have to go back to ECMO. And so, for my own mental health and my own processing, I'd always heard that journaling and blogging and vlogging were great ways to kind of get through this type of stress and this type of burden. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. And so that is why I started this. I needed a way to get outside of this hospital, because during that time for the cardiac arrest, my wife and I were in the room when it happened. It was incredibly traumatic on both of us, but even more so for her. She had a hard time going back in the room after the fact and was able to, but it took time. And then during the nights, I pretty much stayed. Before that, we were taking turns, but after that, it was pretty much me. And so, we've gotten back to the point now where we rotate. But for a long while there, during his most intensive time, it was pretty much me at night. And so I was spending pretty much 24 hours a day here, because they would come. I might slip out and go do a workout every now and again, or just go get some food. But I was pretty much here 24/7 during those really intensive times. And so I needed a way to process everything that was going on, because it was a lot in a short amount of time. And I also needed a way to kind of mentally get outside of these walls. And this has been my way of doing that. It's been able to connect me to a lot of people that I've never met. It's also connected me with our community, which is number 2. We needed a way to streamline all of the information for our community. They were caring, and we have a wonderful support system. But there are a lot of people. My wife's a teacher. I'm a teacher. We grew up in church where we live. We go to church where we live now, which is different than where we grew up. And so there are a lot of people within the system that we've grown up in and then where we live now who were concerned about us. And we love them for it. But it was a lot to try and keep everybody updated, especially when it was a lot of people messaging, calling, things like that. And then again, when we went to that funeral, that was kind of my tipping point of like, okay, we cannot do this every time we go out in public. We cannot answer these questions every time we step foot outside the hospital. We just can't do that. Like, I teach on average 70 to 100 kids in a semester. I can't answer that question every time I come back to school. She can't either. And we can't do that every time that we go out. So because of all those reasons, we felt like we needed to streamline, or at the very least, I felt like I needed to streamline, because I kind of did this on my own starting off, because again, I was at the point where I was like, I need something to kind of process. I need to get out of here. But I was not going to leave my kid here. I just wasn't. And so this was my way out. And so by making the videos and doing all the updates, it was a way for us to get everybody in a central location. They were able to get the information they needed. And then a lot of people did have some follow-ups, but I say a lot of people, it was probably 12 to 15 people. But those 12 to 15 people were people who were already in group chats with us, or who were already calling, and it just limited it from being about 30 or 40 people to being like those 10 to 12. And so that made it a lot more manageable. The third reason is to document and to have photos and videos of our family. And more specifically, the thing that was kind of the thing that I was like, I really need to have photos and videos of were John David. So when he had surgery, I went back through my phone and counted after the fact. There were 16 different pictures and or videos that I had of him up to that point, from February 22nd to March 4th. And so that wasn't a whole lot of pictures or videos. And I naively was just like, he's gonna be fine, like it's gonna be okay. I didn't take what I probably should have in terms of pictures and videos up to that point, but then he had cardiac arrest, and then he went on ECMO. And then I started taking a lot more after that, but I really didn't take anywhere near what I take now. But I really didn't have the mindset of like doing all of this. And during all this time when I had time to reflect, I came upon the realization that Hunter got kicked in the head by a horse in October, that John David had a cardiac arrest on March 4th, and both of those could have taken our children out, and we would have not had them. And so I also realized that we get on the road with several ton vehicles every day when we go out and drive, and that can take you out. You walk outside and there's a thunderstorm, lightning can strike you. Like, there's so many things, life is pretty fragile. And so I was like, you know what, we're just gonna have photos and videos of everything, because it'll be there if something happens to one of us. There's a book that I read years ago that my cousin gave me. It's called The Last Lecture by Randy Polish. And it's about a professor who ends up actually having pancreatic cancer, and then he documents a lot of the stuff and leaves it for his kids. And I had this thought before, like, what if I knew that I was going to pass away before it happened? But in this situation, it's basically, I'm doing this as a way of being proactive and having all this information and documentation there. So that way, on the worst case scenario, it's there if people want to have it if one of us passes away. On best case scenario, which is the one that we're hoping for, is that we all are doing fine in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and this is just a way for us to go back and reminisce on these things that have happened. And so that is reason number 3. The fourth reason is to help spread CHD awareness. Even though CHDs, congenital heart defects, are the most common birth defect in America and the leading cause of death for children under the age of 1, there's a lot of people who really don't know much about them. I can tell you honestly, before I got into all this, I knew what a CHD was, and I knew that it was a heart defect. I didn't realize all the stuff that goes into it or the seriousness of it. And this is actually something that I've talked about with several medical professionals here, and also with just people. And I think a lot of it comes to, like, when we come here, like, basically the babies don't look all that sick when they leave here. They might have like an NG tube, but most people don't share all the pictures and the videos and all those types of things. And so people don't really realize how sick these babies are. And that's one of the things I've heard from doing this, is that a lot of people, I had no idea that they were that sick. But this is how sick they are. They are very sick kiddos while they're here. Now, we are at one of the best places in the nation for pediatric cardiology, and so they do some phenomenal and miraculous things here. And so because of that, that's a blessing for us. But it is something that we do want to help grow awareness for. We would love to help grow funding for it, because as we've seen with cancer over the last 50 years, cancer used to be the leading cause of death for all kids everywhere. And then research has taken and made it so much better. And it's not that it makes it any easier. Cancer still sucks, but the mortality rate has dropped incredibly. And so that is what we would love to see happen with CHD, and that has happened. I'm a history person, so I've gone back and looked at the data. If you go back 40 years ago, CHD mortality rates were so much higher. Just with, transposition of the greater arteries with John David, which is a part of his Tulsa being diagnosis. It used to be around 60% survival rate with the ASO, the arterial switch operation, and now it's in the 90%. So that's a huge jump. So it's not like they're not getting there, but it would be great if we could still minimize that gap. And there are other procedures that are less efficient than that one. The fifth reason is to create a resource for other families. We are not the first family to go through this. I was lucky enough to find another family who had a YouTube channel with a child with Tulsa Bean. Charles is the name of the dad, Max is the name of the little boy with Tulsi Bing, and it was a great resource for me. However, it was the only video resource I was able to find. And like looking for other resources for Tulsi Bing, there really isn't a whole lot out there because it's a rare disorder, it's a rare defect, because it's actually a combination of 3 defects. And in John David's case, he has Tulsi Bing plus the added 4th one. So it just really is kind of hard to find an exact match of somebody else who has everything that he's got going on. But finding 3 Under 2, which is the name of the channel that Charles made, was really helpful into seeing what was in store for us, because Max is 6 years old, and so he's already been through all this. It was, we deviated because we had more complications like the cardiac arrest and the ECMO and the stroke, but it did give me a baseline of kind of what to expect. And so, again, we know we're not the first, but we also know there's not a whole lot of resources out there. So then this is a resource for other people who are coming behind us, because there will be more people diagnosed with this. There'll be more people diagnosed with just CHD in general. And so if this is a way to be inspirational for them of like, look, there's this baby who's had not just CHD, but also has had a very rough path through his CHD, and he's made it, then hopefully it will give them some hope and some inspiration that they too will get to a point one day where they'll get on the other side of this. And then the 6th reason is we'll probably always be a small channel, and that's okay. We may make money, we may not, and if we don't ever make money, that is completely fine. But it is to get monetized. If we get there, awesome, but it'll probably be a couple $100s a year, and that's okay by me. Because again, those first 5 reasons that I listed, those are the biggies. Those are the ones that I care about. And again, that's kind of why all the videos and why the channel was born in the first place, was because I needed it for me. And I'm not gonna have any compunction about that or any shame about it. I did it for me. I needed these to get out of my own head. And so there was that. I also needed it to be able to streamline our communications with our community and with people who were trying to support us. So there was that one. I also needed it for documentation, because again, I had the realization of I don't have many photos or videos of my kid. Had he not made it through that cardiac arrest, I would have had 16 photos and videos of him total, like 16 combined. That hit hard when I realized it. So there's that. Then it really, and I do hope that it grows so that way we can spread CHD awareness. I do want more people to understand what this does to these babies, what this does to these families, and so they have to go through this. And so hopefully by doing these, it opens that door and helps shed some light on that. And then I really do hope that it is a resource for the families that come after us, that it's an inspiration for people who watch it. I've been told by people in our church, in our community, and by other families here who've watched these that it's an inspiration for them, that it's helped them with their faith. And again, for me, there's nothing better than that right there. If they tell me that it helps them through what they're going through, if it helps them with helping strengthen their faith in Christ, that's all I need to hear. That's phenomenal. So these are the reasons that we made this, and hope that helps y'all. Y'all have a good night and God bless.